If something happened to you and your spouse together, what do you think will happen to your young children? You may be thinking it's your parents back home or your siblings back home who can just look after the children, but they really cannot just come and legally take the children away. It's social services who decides. That is why everybody living in the UK needs a will. In this video, I'll tell you everything about making a will, how to make a will, where to get started, how to update things when circumstances change. So let's dive into it. Having a will is definitely about managing your assets, but more importantly, I think it's mainly about minor children. Especially if you're an expat like me with no immediate family about, if something happens to me and my spouse, the children get taken into care by social services, and then the court decides who's best to look after them. I can't even imagine what my children would be like in that situation if me and my husband were to pass away and they get taken into care. So they've not only lost us, but they've also got the trauma of going into a foster care. So having children under the age of 18 is one of the top reasons for having a will. This is just a side note. Me and my friend have both nominated each other for our children in case something were to happen to us. So that way the school community, their friends and everything will be the same. They'll still have a familiar community around them to look after them. If you're unmarried and living with a partner, your partner doesn't automatically get the right to live in your house. Imagine your partner grieving for your loss as well as losing their home. You really don't want to leave them in that position. This is another big reason for making a will. Now about your assets. If you were to pass away and you've not had a will in place, your assets, your bank accounts, etc., just get frozen, and it goes through a process called a probate, where it goes to court and the court decides, just looks at your dependents and things, and eventually it comes down to your family. So your assets are in a way are safe. It just takes 6 to 12 months for the probate process to go through. But with the will, you still have to go through the probate process, but it's a lot quicker than without a will, because with a will you've done your due diligence and you've discussed and thought about how your assets want to be distributed. But without a probate, the court decides how you may be thinking, so the process takes a lot longer. There are 3 options for making your will. The first is the worst option, getting a DIY will kit. You can get it online and places like WH Smith and things. But this is perhaps the worst option because you've not worded it properly, etc., etc. It's only £25, and maybe if you use ChatGPT and things these days, maybe you can word it a bit better. But really, this is the cheapest option, but it's cheapest for a reason. And you may want to consider the other options, especially the third option that I've personally chosen. The next is the gold standard method of making a will, a solicitor drafted will, where a solicitor chats with you and drafts the will and goes through the process with you. This is the most expensive option, and I've heard of £500 to £1,000 being quoted for solicitor drafted wills. I personally do not think everybody needs a solicitor drafted will. You need it if you've got complex situations, like say you have a disabled child, you want more access to that child than the rest of your children, or you definitely want less assets for one child, maybe, I don't know, they're into drugs or whatever, overseas property. So for complex situations, you definitely need a solicitor drafted will. The third option is what I've personally used. It's a will writing service. So in this option, the drafting of the will is done by a common person who's been trained to draft a will, and then the solicitor checks the will. So it is not a solicitor drafted, but it is solicitor checked. And this option tends to be a lot more cheaper than the solicitor drafted will because there's less solicitor time involved. If you have very straightforward circumstances, if you die or your spouse died, it goes to each other, and if you both die, it goes to the children. So if the circumstances are very straightforward, then a will writing service is more than enough. The way I tend to look at it is, if you have a medical condition, your GP is quite capable to look after most normal everyday conditions, and if he needs some more help, or he or she needs some more help, they refer you to a specialist. So similarly, for more straightforward circumstances, a will writing service is more than enough. But if there's more specialist circumstances, then you need a solicitor drafted will. A lot of us do not make a will because of the cost associated with making a will. So I think it's very important to make a will and to get it done a bit cheaper than to avoid making a will altogether, because will needs to be updated from time to time. So it's not you pay a lot of money and it's set and forget and it's perfect for the rest of your lifetime. You need to update it if your children turn 18, if you have a new birth in the family, any major life decision, if there's any marriages, if there's any divorces, if there's any deaths, if you have any specific funeral wishes, or if your beneficiaries unfortunately die. So what I mean by that is, if you've decided that everything goes to your children, if your children unfortunately pass away before you, you need to update your will. I've done my will through a company called Fairwill. For me and my husband, it was a mirrored will. So he dies, everything goes to me, and then the children, and vice versa. So that's called a mirrored will. And I think it cost us just over £200. So it was a significant amount of money, but it was easily done. We're coming to update our will when our older daughter turns 18, so another 4-5 years. I'll link you to an article in the description box below where you can read everything in detail about making a will. If you've liked this video, or if you think somebody in your life needs to hear this, forward this to them. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.